Hello, welcome to another no-code tutorial. My name is Paul, your favorite no-code developer. I teach you how to build scalable digital applications using no-code. Today, I want to introduce you to Buildship. Buildship is an amazing tool that can enable you to build very powerful and scalable API in minutes. Before Buildship, building APIs can be very tasking. Can be expensive. You needed to hire a developer. You needed to get someone to do this for you. But with Buildship, you can actually build APIs simply by dragging and dropping stuff on the screen in minutes. That's how fast you can build it. And not just API, you can perform cron jobs. Cron jobs are those things you want to do at a time frame. Maybe you want to say send an email at a particular time. You want to say update the database at a particular time. You just want something to happen at a particular time. And also you can also build cloud functions. You can create record in your database, read record in your database, update data in your database using Buildship. Somehow, if you have Buildship, you really don't have any use for a tool like Zapier. If you have Buildship, of course, if you can use Buildship very well, you might really not have any use for Zapier. Zapier can be a bit expensive, but if you see how Buildship charges you, when you look at the pricing, they would say it charges you via workflow. I'm going to explain what workflow is when we jump into Buildship, but you can see like 10 execution hours, right? No rate limit, 50 AI generated nodes, 3 users, storage, version control, and a whole lot of other things, right? But let's see what Buildship offers you. Like you can see right here, build powerful APIs in a minute. And if you keep going down, you'll see how it builds things. It builds things via, dragging and dropping stuff on and into the screen, right? And gives you the liberty to change things that you don't like, to, connect with other tools that you really need. Because one thing about building with no code is that you're going to be building with a whole lot of tools. Right? Building with, when you're coding, of course, you're building with a whole lot of tools too, but you might of course you're building with a whole lot of tools, but people who code might be able to leverage on, coding languages to create these tools themselves. But for no code, you want to be talking to a whole lot of services together. No code is like bundling a whole lot of tools and services and putting it into one. For example, let's say you want to connect with ChatGPT API to create a chatbot, then Buildship can help you. Let's say you want to connect to your Google account, you want to connect to your bank account, you want to connect to Stripe, you want to get information about certain things, they can really help you. For me, that's like one of the most exciting things about Buildship. The fact that I can use Buildship to connect to other pre-existing service is just out of this world for me. And another thing I love about Buildship is that I can use AI, just like it says here. I can use AI to generate my own Buildship simply by telling it what to do. For example, you can see on the screen right here, it says, I need a node to perform open API call with ChatGPT 4 model. And that, as funny as it sounds, all you just have to do is to put in that sentence, and it's going to create a node for you. And then you can edit that node the way you want to. Right. So with all that said, let us open Buildship. So you click on if you don't have an account, you have to create an account. But if you have an account already, all you have to do is to open the app. So I'm gonna sign in with my Google account straight up. So once you sign in with your account, the next thing you're gonna see, you're gonna be welcome to this dashboard. So it's majorly because I have some previous project. That's the reason why I have this dashboard open already. So you can stay with the free plan for now, because you'll be able to take this short tutorial with your free plan. And if you like what you see, you want to do a whole lot more, you would have to move to a paid plan, right? That's what you have to do. I have a couple of stuff here. You would see that I have a lot of stack on top of each other, right? I have a lot of stack on top of each other, lots and lots of it. But one thing that you see here, you'll see workflows. That's how Buildship help you to create stuff. So you create stuff as a series of workflows. That's the way you create it. So we have workflows, and you can add another workflow to this, right, to start a new workflow. Meanwhile, you can connect one workflow to another workflow, of course, but it's just cool that you keep everything straight and polished. And also you have folders here that you can create. So we can create, let's say we are creating AI folder. Let's just imagine that we're going to be creating stuff with AI. So these are AI folder, and we want to add a new workflow inside this AI folder, right? So we're going to say test AI workflow, right? So this is a workflow, and our workflow is inside a folder. So you can see we have this folder right here. And another thing, when you're cool and you pretty much understand how to create a folder, to understand workflow a whole lot better, you want to create a trigger. So the trigger works like this. How exactly will your Buildship workflow be initiated? Right? For example, you want to initiate a communication between two persons in your application. Somebody will have to type something to create a record. Right? That's what you would see on platforms like FLUTTERFLOW, Bubble, and the rest. You would need to create a record in those applications for something to happen. Right? So that's a trigger. So Buildship have a couple of triggers that you can add, but these are templates. If you look at any of these templates and you think that anyone resonate with you, you can use any of them. For example, calculating distance, scheduling emails, screenshot, music generator, storybook, Stripe checkout completed. Right? But a cool way to get started, especially if you're new to Buildship, is to click on the add trigger. So if you click on the add trigger, you can see that you have the REST API call. Trust me, this is the most popular type of trigger you're going to be using in your Buildship journey, the REST API call. I barely use most of this other trigger right from the beginning. I would normally use the REST API call for my trigger. Right? So you would likely use the REST API call. There's a ROI trigger. So ROI is like another tool that is similar to Buildship, right? It's another tool pretty similar to Buildship. In fact, ROI and Buildship, they are owned by the same company. This is the logo of ROI, and then this is the logo of Buildship. Same color, same everything. So ROI is a database management tool. That's what it is, but very cool. You can check it out. We're not talking about ROI this time. And then there is this cron job that we talked about. So you can see cron job scheduled. What time is it going to be? What time zone is it going to be? Then we have the Stripe webhook. So what happened with Stripe webhook? You can say, oh, what happened? You could say, I want you to initiate this trigger when a payment fails. I want you to initiate this trigger when a payment is successful. I want you to initiate this trigger when a payment is not completed. You know, there is Superbase trigger, there is Telegram bot, there is Buildship trigger, there is Firebase authentication trigger. So a couple of all of them. But today, we're just going to start with the REST API trigger. So add this trigger, which is a REST API. So in case you're not familiar with REST API, I'm going to give you a tiny, very, very tiny walkthrough of what REST API is and how you too can use REST API to accomplish stuff in your application. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to take you over to FigJam. So I've created a very cool diagram for you that I'm pretty sure it's going to work well. So let's imagine you have this food application, right? Let's just imagine this is an app. You have this food application where you have a lot of items, right? Item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, right? And then you want to connect this food application to a standard service, right? So before Buildship, you would use something like you would code it or use Make or Zapier to connect to all of this standard service and more. Then with Buildship, you're now able to connect with this without writing code or using Make or using Zapier, right? Which is cool, isn't it? But before you can connect with all this, you basically have to ask yourself, what exactly am I going to be doing? Right? What exactly am I going to be doing with all of those steps? Am I asking for a resource or am I giving them a resource? Because you see, everything is like give and it shall be given unto you, right? So everything in the internet, you're either giving or you're taking or you're making adjustments. That's just the way it is, right? So you want to say there are different methods. So an API, a REST API will have different methods. One of them is get. Get, you're asking stuff, you are retrieving stuff from the server. That's get. Post, you're asking the server to create a new resource. That's post. Put, you're asking the server to make edits, right? Patch, you're asking the server to partially edit something, to partially edit an existing resources. And delete, you are asking the server to delete your resources. Just think of it like this. A similar thing that you do with your database, like CRUD. CRUD. So C stands for create. C stands for create. Right? Arrow stands for read. So it's very similar to what you're doing, right? Very, very similar to what you're doing with the method. U stands for update, right? And D stands for delete. So when you are getting something, it means you are reading. When you are posting something, it means you're creating. When you are putting or patching something, you're making updates. And when you're deleting, you are deleting. So there are other type of methods, but these are the major methods that you use in your REST API. And also another thing you want to understand is some key terms. JSON means JavaScript object notation. Object is a thing. For example, you want to retrieve a list of something, and that thing is a car. So you want to retrieve a list of car, and that's an object. So what exactly you want to retrieve? I want to retrieve a list of persons. That's an object. Then key, it's an attribute about an object. For example, I'm poor, and you can see my face right now. I am black. So one attribute of the object poor is black. So you see, I am black, right? I have 5 fingers, right? That's an attribute, right? This is a key and it's going to have a value. So we have key and then we have the value. So for example, Paul has what color? That's a key, which is color. And then what's the value? The value is black. So the value is black. So you see, Paul, the color here, the key here is color and the value here is black, right? That's the way you do it. And then we have associative array. So don't worry, you'll see that in action later. So I hope you understand this. If you don't get it, go over the video again or leave your thought in the comment section and I'll do well to reply you ASAP. Thank you. Let's go back to Buildship. Okay, so you can see right here, one of the first things that you want to do when you are in Buildship, when you're creating a REST API call in Buildship, is to name it. So we will just name this test API. So I'm going to name this test API. Test API. And these are methods. So my method here is get, post, put, delete. So I'm going to start with the get method. So for the get method, I can actually make this API work ASAP. So what I can do is to just click on this plus sign, right? I'm going to put a return. So every single API will always return something, right? You'd always return something. And that's why we have this return here. And they return some value code, right? So you could actually put a return at the end. You can put it anywhere, but mostly a return is always at the end. So you could tell them to return something based on some values, right? For example, we could have this. We could have a parallel right here, right? We could have this stuff called a parallel or a branch, that if a particular thing is like this, I want you to return this, but if it's not like this, I want you to return that. But let's not talk about the branch yet. We'll talk about it in some other video. So for example, if we're telling this guy to return something, we could say the status code is 200, right? 200 means that the API call went through very well and it worked very well. And the value can either be in JavaScript or could either be in test, right? JavaScript test. So you can put everything in between a tick and it's going to work. So it could be this works, right? So let's just make it return hello or no code. So this is what we're making a return. and we can go ahead and test it here, or we can just ship our API. So if you ship your API, it goes live, but if you want to test it, you can just test it in here, and we'll just say test API. So this API call does not require anything, does not require any query, body or header parameters or whatsoever, right? You can see hello Paul, no code, that's what it returns. And if you're comfortable with this, you can just click on the ship icon, right? You can click on the ship icon and you'll then be able to return it. So we'll just click on copy endpoint, right? Endpoint URL. So this is the URL that you get to call your API with, right? This is a unique endpoint for your API key, for your API. So every time you use this API, you can actually use this workflow, talk to this workflow, right? You can communicate with this workflow, and anything that you've put beneath this workflow is just going to happen. And the easiest way to test this is to test it via your browser. So if you paste a GET request in your browser, it's just going to work like so. Right, you see the return, hello Paul, no code. That's the return. If we go ahead and come back here and then change the return, new response, and then we'll ship it again. We'll ship it again, right? Then we'll come back here and then we'll click right here. So it's going to say hello Paul, no code, new response. Why? Because it's a GET request. So for a GET request, you can always test it in your browser, but for a POST request, you can't test it just right there in your browser, right? Why? Because your browser is always getting stuff. So every time you're browsing, your browser is always running GET request, but just that it makes it fancy. That's what your browser does. So if you want to see if your GET request is good or bad, you just check out the log, right? Check the log, you refresh the log right there. You refresh it and you can see that the last run was successful. You can see the response of the last run. You can see it right here. You can see the response right here. Query, no query. You can see there was no query, nothing happening. So you can basically see what happened in the last run that you did. You can check out the body, you can check out the header, you can check out everything that you want to check out right here. This will just tell you a whole lot more about the workflow that you executed, if it worked very well and if it didn't work very well, or what you can do to make it work a whole lot better, right? So if we understand that, let's take it a little bit forward, right? A little bit forward. So if we click into this, you will see your endpoint URL. You can always copy it from here, or you can copy it from here, right? But if we click here and would say edit, right, you would see that we have the GET request again, and then we can edit the code right here. See, this is what's running. This is what's running on your request, right? This is what's running on that particular trigger. So if we come back here, then we can see that the type that is returning an object, right? We can make it return anything. We can make it return just a string, right? We can make it return a number, a boolean, which is a true or false, an array, or make it return anything of our choice, right? And also we can also add something to it. We can add a new output, right? We can say it's going to output type. Let's just say the label here, it's type, right? That's the label, and we'll say just make it string, it's fine, and we'll say save, right? So this is so we can add additional parameters for this API call to return when we want it to return it, right? So that's something else that we can do, and we can add a plus sign in between right here to talk to any other type of services that we want to talk to when we want to, right? So what we have here, if we click on this plus sign, we can add a node to it, right? You see, there are lots of different type of nodes. There are different type of nodes. What we just add here, what we have here is a REST API node. Is this a return all node? But let's just add something else and see. Okay, I'm gonna pick this crawler node. Okay, so a node will normally have a couple of things. It will have the input parameter, just like what we have here. So all these input parameter, they are always active, right? It will have the node options. So all these options is where you will click into the node to see what node is all about. So we have the node logic, we have the input. So this is what you're giving the node. We have the output. This is what the node is going to respond with. And we also have information about the node, right? And then we have a tiny question mark here that tells you what this node is actually expecting, right? It tells you what this node is actually expecting. It tells you that for you to be able to use this node, you will need a URL, you will need a mass request, you will need to add mass concurrency, like how many of these requests you run in concurrently. You will need the selector, right? The selector. You will need the URL, right? List of URL to be used automatically by crawler for all connections, right? So when you want to put any of this, you would have to click on this pencil icon, and then you click on the test and you click on the test and you can add JavaScript to it, or it could be plain text. So not every time you have to use JavaScript, and not every time you need to use plain text. If you're going to use JavaScript, you can still rely on OpenAI. You can use ChatGPT to generate JavaScript and just put it in there. But a lot of time, you're really not going to be using a whole lot of JavaScript to do what you want to do here. Plain text is always fine at the end of the day, right? So in order for us to use this node, all we have to do is to take I'm going to look for a blog article, how to use AI. So I'm just going to use a blog article so I can copy the URL. So this is the URL. I'm going to take this URL. Now I'm looking for a blog, 31 ways to use AI. So I'm going to copy this blog article and I'm going to put it here. Right, I'm going to put it here. So this is the URL. So that means we fulfill one of the condition of this node, right? And then we have the selector. So the selector, you can see the type of selector that we can have here: container, div content, dot container. Those are different type of selector, right? But a cool way to do this would just be to right click here and inspect it. Right click here and inspect it. And I'm just going to see what's the container housing majority of the content. So this is a content, right? Inspect, looking for the container that's housing most of the content right here. So I think is a div container, or this ID article container, right? We can use this ID article container, or we can just use a div container. So you can see we have the P container. Let's dive in. Let's see what's happening here. We have the so we have so I think it's the P container, which is super cool. But the div container is actually housing almost everything that we have here, and everything is inside the ID, which is called post. So I'm going to come back here and just put the selector as P, which is the paragraph selector, and I'm just going to test this to see how it runs. But let's just test this. When you test, I want you to see something. Let's just test this first. So it worked, right? It worked, but you see the response, right? Is Paul, hello Paul, no code, new response. So the reason why is because we did not pass the response from this node down to this node. So if I click on this green button, you would see what we have here, right? This is what we have here. We have here the response from the URL, right? This is the response from the URL from the website. So it crawled the website and give me the response, right? And then what I'm supposed to do is to pass the response of this crawl to this value, right? So if I come back here, and I say the response is going to be from the crawler, it's going to be the item of the crawler, right? So then I'm going to test it again, text workflow again. So now you can see how it works. So now we have a response, right? See the response. Can you see it? Now we have a very cool response, and we can just ship this workflow and test it right here in our browser. That's how cool it is. So I copy this endpoint and I'll put it right here and put the start button. Just click on the enter button right there in my browser, and I'll be able to test this endpoint straight up. This is a response from the browser article, right? So with AI, you can actually make this pretty. You can run this through the AI and make it look really, really pretty, right? Take all the information, make it really pretty and make it cool. But we're not going to worry about that right here in this, we're not going to worry about that right here in this beginner's tutorial. Okay, so now that we have that, but I am pretty sure you're asking me, how is it that I'm going to be changing this AI? You know, how are we going to change this URL? How can we change this URL? So you change this URL by using inputs, right? You can use form inputs, right? You can use a prompt. So let's just click on the plus sign and we can say form input, right? Form value extractor, or you can use a query parameter. Don't worry, they're really going to do the same thing, you know, do something very, very similar. Use a query parameter or a form input, right? So I'm just going to do a form input. Okay, let's use a query parameter. That's fine. Easy and fast and sharp. So get query param. So this is going to be the URL of the website, the URL of the website that we want to crawl. So this will copy this and take it away. Control X will copy this and take it away. So the query key that we're looking for is this URL, and the website URL, we're going to replace the website URL with this particular query key, right? Remember the last time we talked about the key and the value. So this is the key, right? And we're going to impute the value ourselves. So click right here, and the value, I'm going to say variable. I'm going to say get query param, and the value of the get query param, right? That's what we're going to use. So if I click on the test, so if I click on the test, it's going to ask me to put my query key and then the value. I'll click on the Control V, and then I'll put a test workflow. So you can see we have something similar. So now we can keep on changing the query key, right? Keep on changing the query key anytime, as many times as possible, and we'll have different results. So if we're cool, we'll just go ahead and we'll ship it, and that's all we have to do. So I'm going to test it right here in the browser. I'll copy my endpoint, go back to the browser, I'll paste it, and then I'll put a question mark, right? I'll put a question mark, I'll put the URL, right? And I'll put an equal sign. So I'm going to get a URL, any URL from the internet, and I'm going to put it right here, Control V, and I'll put I'll hit the enter key. So don't forget, it is question mark URL equal to, and then I'll click on the enter sign, and just wait a little bit, and we're going to have our Buildship get request ready. So you can see this is the response from the crawler. So it's just crawling. This is the response from the crawler. Though we can always make this pretty if we want to. We can use ChatGPT to make it pretty. We can find, we can check out the website and find the content the tag, make it look very good. But that's not our business this time. We just want to create an API and ship it. So that's basically how you get introduced to Buildship. I don't want to make it too long. So if you have questions, leave it in the comment section and I'll do well to respond to it. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate you for checking out my channel. So you want to get started with your project on Buildship, you don't know how to, feel free to reach out to me. Or if you want to build out your no-code project, feel free to reach out to me and I'll do all to help you out. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in another tutorial. Thank you.